So big threes haven't worked since 2019. The last team was the Golden State Warriors, who I think would have won the championship if they didn't get injured. However, 2020 we had a big duo in AD and LeBron with role players. Warriors, there was really a big one, Steph Curry, and then the Nuggets last year with Murray, Jokic, and a lot of great surrounding role players. If you look at all the big threes that have formed since 2019, all of them failed. Looking at the Brooklyn Nets with Harden, Kyrie, and KD. But let's look at this year because this is what I wanted to talk about. Was that if you look at the Phoenix Suns, you got Bradley Beal, you got Devin Booker, you got Kevin Durant, all on max contracts. You even have Grayson Allen on an 80 million year contract. And the problem is that it's not working. You look at the Clippers, you got Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and then you have Russell Westbrook. That could even be considered a big four. I wouldn't consider it a big four just because Russ is coming off the bench. The problem is one, Golden State Warriors worked with KD because KD, Clay, and Steph, they can move without the ball. And I was thinking like, oh, maybe the problem is they don't have, great players on the bench, which is not true because Clippers have Terrence Mann, and the Suns got a lot of players. Grayson Allen's a knockdown shooter. The Golden State Warriors played a completely different brand of basketball, which was a motion offense. They would start out and just keep passing the ball. Each player would take their shots. No player gave up shots at the beginning of the first quarter. It was they would gauge to see who has it working, who doesn't have it working. And even when they had it working, they still would pass the ball multiple times. But the two stars would pass to the third star, who was getting going, and they would feed them and get them open looks. And you weren't able to double because as soon as you double the open star, the other two stars knocked down the open shots. All three were great shooters. Then you had players like Iguodala, Sean Livingston, David West. I would more say Sean Livingston and Andre Iguodala, who could easily average 20. They could even get you 30 on a good night, but they were somewhere between 7 to 15 points. My main point from all that is you had a superstar who's going to get you 30 minimum. You could had two players actually who could get you 30 minimum. Most of the times when they won, it was because KD and Steph or KD and Clay had 30 points each, and then the other star probably had 15 to 20. You see the Suns losing yesterday and the Clippers losing. Not one player had 30 points. On the Clippers, you had two players with 22 with Paul George and Harden. The Suns were even worse. You had Booker barely got 20 points. KD had 18 and Beal had 14. They play a different brand of basketball, which is very isolation based. Nothing wrong with it, but the problem is it's you go, I go. So when a player like James Harden has it going in the first, they stopped feeding him, and he got out of rhythm because it was okay. Harden has it going, and then Kawhi puts up shots in the paint, and he starts missing, and then James Harden loses his rhythm. And both of these teams don't have a Draymond Green-esque player, and people are like, "Oh, you can get a Draymond from anywhere." No, one, he's one of the best passers in the league, but two, he's also very unselfish. 2016 season, he was averaging 16.7 points per game, and people are like, "What? 16.7?" Yeah, he was averaging 16.7, and gave up his shot to help the three shooters on his team get a better look. The Suns don't have a primary point guard. They have Devin Booker, a shooting guard, playing point guard where he looks very uncomfortable. Russ is a good passer, don't get me wrong, but he was looking to score, and he usually looks to score. He was 1 for 7 at one point in the game. I would like the Clippers and the Suns to play a more unselfish brand of basketball for sure. Because in Golden State, let's say you couldn't double any three of the stars. But those stars were so unselfish that they were looking to get the other two stars open baskets. They were so unselfish that if a role player has it going, he would play primary minutes, he'd play a starter minutes, and they'd feed him the basketball. The Golden State was so dangerous because you couldn't trap or double any of them. If you tried and focused on when only two of the stars were in, you doubled or trapped both of them, they would give it to role players for wide open shots. I feel like the lack of not having a primary distributor is bad, but also the Golden State Warriors were all great passers, were more motion offense. They didn't ISO unless they had it going like crazy. I feel like rhythm is a big factor that's not talked about for these big threes, and they're not failing. Now the big two is working, and like for example, it's still the same concept of you go, I go, right? Like, okay, I take a shot, you take a shot, we pick and roll together. Whoever has it going, we're gonna pick and roll that person as the primary option. Because if he gets trapped, I can pass it to the other star for a wide open layup. But they're not having to share with three people. There's two primary ball distributors, which works really well in this NBA because it works with Jamal. And I think Jokic, you can't count that because he's such a great passer. He finds the role players open, or gets them open like Golden State used to. But if you look at the combination that worked for the Lakers in 2020, it was a lot of pick and roll. It was AD go, LeBron go. And it worked for Ty Lue when he was coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. It was a very primary. Two kings have the crown, which were Kyrie Irving and LeBron. I try, you try. We pick and roll together. And it would work at times because people would be open in the corner because the two would get doubled. I mean, 41 and 41 points in a game together. They were getting Kevin Love wide open shots. It doesn't work in his system in LA though, because one, nobody could stop Zubac game 1 and game 2, yet they didn't feed Zubac the ball. Instead, it was a more like I try, you try. Kawhi trying to get something going. He was missing a lot of shots. Russ was missing a lot of shots, but he plays hard, so at least he has that. That's the reason they lost in the fourth quarter. Zubac, nobody could guard him yet. They were like, I'm going to try this shot. I'm going to try this shot. It was like no real good ball movement.